Welcome back. The terrorist attack on a Christmas market in Berlin last week has raised questions about the legitimacy of Donald Trump's rigid position on banning all Muslim immigration into the United States. Ron, do you think Donald Trump will be able to gain the support needed to pursue a ban like this, and would it work?
I think there will be guidelines placed upon people that come in far more stringent than there has been in the past.
Okay.
But I really don't know with the bombing, the terrorist attacks in Berlin, what that has to do with the people coming into the U.S. of A. That's people that went into Germany. It's people that are there in Germany, all over the world. Will there be terrorist attacks in this country, whether it's a cell that is homegrown here, or that somebody that comes in? Somebody's coming in the country all the time. May not even be a terrorist from a terrorist state that comes in and creates the problem. So I think he is premature. He wants to say terrorist, that the words that Obama wouldn't say. He thinks it's really cool to constantly say that over and over and over now. Again, he's our president, or a president-elect. He'll be there, and it's up to him to make his choice.
So
Colin?
I guess what I would, and this is something that bothers me, and this is something that bothers me because there is a certain dark or a certain logic to having a view like wanting to ban people. You know, the only thing that comes to mind, and it's somewhat apt, is the Reichstag fire and the Holocaust. Yeah. So it's always easy to find a reason to create a wave of opposition against a certain group of people. And, you know, we have to be honest with ourselves, and I think the one mistake that the Obama administration had made, and I think probably for good intentions, but very naive ones, is not to admit the fact that it is not a reflection on Islam as a religion, but it is a reflection on a certain line of thought within Islam that leads to radicalization. And again, we have to be very honest with ourselves that these lines of thinking exist not just in Islam, they exist in Christianity.
Right.
After all, Oklahoma City was not carried out by Muslims.
Right.
And it was the worst terrorist attack on American soil prior to 9/11. Battling extremism and banning an entire group of people based on whatever qualification we decide to do is not going to lead to good things. And look, you've had so many we've had some terrorist attacks. We've also had a lot of hate crimes in this country that have been committed on people that had nothing to do with terrorism, based on the way that they looked. And, you know, forget even about what's happened here recently. You had all these attacks on Sikhs because they wear turbans.
Right.
They're not Muslim. If anybody who knows anything about Sikhs and their religion would know that they have absolutely nothing to do with Islam.
Yep.
And actually, not necessarily peaceful because the Sikhs were a warrior culture,
That's true.
But they don't go around carrying out terrorist attacks either.
Right. You know, so you brought up the Oklahoma City bombing. What was the motivation behind that, Colin? Do you remember?
It was against overreach by the federal government.
Okay.
So there was a certain bit of irony in
that. So, you know, between that and the attacks on 9/11, all right, what causes radicalization, all right? So, you know, for one, you know, you said overreach. If I remember correctly, I think part of that was also kind of a vendetta for Waco.
There was that,
right?
So I think you're bringing up a good point.
And you know, so radicalization of Islam. Well, gosh, you know, maybe if we didn't bomb villages, they might not come after us.
And I think there's... Wait a minute. Does Israel cause any of the radicalization at all by what we do for them, how we defend them, how we don't defend them? I've heard more in the last week from the United Nations what the Israelis feel. How?
You have heard a lot of opinions that may or may not be well informed. So look, here's the historical reality of Israel, and it's a country that deserves to exist. So first, we have to accept that, and the Palestinians will have to accept the right of Israel to exist.
Should the Palestinians exist?
Yes.
Another state?
Yes.
Okay.
So and the reason for that.
Ken, what do you think about it? Two states?
I agree.
Okay, all three of us agree. Two
I
states.
agree. I agree on that. where the disagreement's probably going to lie is going to be what are the boundaries.
Okay, go
All right,
ahead.
and I honestly can't say.
No, and so I think, yes, that does play a role into it, but I think the Arab-Israeli issue is much more complex, and both sides are to blame for it. Our support for it may or may not have a lot to do with it. If you look at the history of terrorism, it really had more to do with very oppressive Arab regimes. In our case, a lot of it stems not so much from the whole Arab-Israeli piece as it does from promises that we made in Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion that were never carried out and never lived up to, because we supported the Mujahideen. We stood them up. Al-Qaeda was an organization built by the ISI in Pakistan to funnel funds from the U.S. into the Mujahideen.
Yeah, and that's now we're going back to the whole Cold War. I mean, ultimately, any way you look at it, we accidentally created a lot of our own issues by trying to defeat communism.
Yes.
When communism ended up defeating itself when the USSR collapsed anyway.
But what did Khrushchev say? What did Khrushchev say all those years ago? And I'm looking for something specific, and I wouldn't expect anybody just to remember. The United States will destroy itself from within. We will become our own worst enemy, fighting amongst ourselves. And what are we doing now?
There's some truth in that.
Have you watched any forums now and any rallies in this country where people really become radical? Where they become just totally uncontrollable on things that are said about
incapable
things?
of communicating with somebody who has a difference of opinion.
And you wonder how radical Islam, how they would radicalize people. Watch our own people, how they can become radicalized just on local issues and national issues.
Oh,
That's a very
it's
good
terrifying. It really is. Absolutely terrifying. So, but up next, our panel weighs in on some big changes that might be coming to the American healthcare system. Stay tuned.